Okay, so after the introductory video, there might be some of you asking, yeah, this is all cool and everything, but how do I even get started? You already have objects and materials set up, and yeah, so that's what I am here to talk about. So I'm starting with an empty scene. You can see that I started with the node 3D because it's a 3D scene, and this is the base of every 3D scene. There's no going around it. So, I mean, there is going around it, but if you want to do things proper, this is the best way to do it. To put everything under this node. So, we need a mesh, right? So, because there is nothing to apply the textures to, we can just use any mesh from the collection. I have quite a few to choose, but I would like to start with something simple. Let's see, maybe just a simple cube. If you don't have any meshes on your library, don't worry, you can always add a child node. I usually go with the static body first, because if I want to add collisions, then this makes everything much easier. And then under the static body, you add another child. And this time, I already have some favorites here set up. You can just look for them in the list and then click the star here to add them to your favorites. You also have all the recent nodes that you used. Unless you clear your project cache, they will stay here forever. So it's also a useful way to get to the things that you use the most. Right now, for a mesh, we would use the mesh instance 3D. You can see that there are also other kinds of mesh instances, like the path meshes. We are not going to talk about this now. We're just going to use the simplest mesh node available. And okay, here it is. So this is the most simple mesh tree you can have. And you can see there is no mesh here. It's empty. You can create a simple mesh right on the spot. So you can use a box mesh for this example. And usually these meshes don't have more than one material, which is good and efficient, and the mapping should also be pretty much in place. So this is completely white. There is no material. You can see that you can override the surface material here. You can also click the mesh, see if it has any material assigned here. If it doesn't, you can also assign it here. I have some materials already saved. You can also do that for every material that you create. You can save it, which will save you also time later. Let's see, this roof material. Yeah, as you can see, the mapping is correct for every face. It's not distorted, and it's a one-to-one mapping. It means that the texture will be mapped one time to this face, no repeating. Sometimes the scale can influence that, the UV scale that we talked about previously. And in this case, you can see that the UV scale is set up so that you only see one corner of the full image. Okay, so let's use a very simple material. I will not even load one. We'll just close this and we will create a simple standard material 3D, which is a PBR material. And as you can see, we have the very same parameters that we had in the previous video. So we go to the albedo. If we want, we can set up the color right away. I usually prefer to do that later, after we have loaded the texture. I will quick load the texture just so I don't spend a lot of time searching. Yeah, this wood texture looks kind of good. Okay, I'll take it. So we have our wooden cube. And wouldn't it be nice, pun intended, if we could do something more with this. Have you ever heard of metallic wood? I sure never did. But you can try to make it look metallic if that's what you're trying to do. It doesn't really look very metallic, does it? Because the base texture is not favoring that look that we are trying to convey. If we were using a simple gray texture, maybe. Let's see. We set the color to gray. We set metallic to 1, specular to 1, just so we can see well what we are doing. And there we go. We are going to try and load a texture to the metallic or specular channel. And it really doesn't look very metallic, does it? You still have to play around with the parameters a bit to get that look that you are looking for. But okay, that wasn't intended. Let's just use this one. Okay, it kind of looks like a gray watermelon in cube shape. Not really like metal. But we can try to use different color channels from where to derive the distribution of the metallicness or the metalness, or you know, the metallic property of the surface. It's kind of okay. I mean, let's see if we can influence this with some different lighting and making it a little bit darker. Okay, that's not really the iron block from Minecraft, but you can see that it kind of shimmers and shines, and it reflects a little bit of light, as if opposed to turning specular way down. There you have it, the obsidian block from Minecraft. It doesn't reflect any light. I mean, obsidian does kind of reflect light, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, this is not the right way to do a metallic material. So, moving up. The roughness, it also has an impact on how metallic or shiny a surface looks, and that's one of the reasons why it kind of was looking so stiff, maybe. Yeah, look at that. Nice shiny aluminum surface, or maybe it's iron, I don't know. Use your imagination and try to make things that look good to you and not exactly extremely realistic, unless that's what you're looking for. I think in the end, good art style always wins over hyperrealism. But that's just my opinion. The emission, I showed that shortly, I didn't explain. This is like turning your material into a light bulb, basically. Look at that. And you can even multiply the energy so it's even shinier. But if you use the multiply operator, where did the light go? Oh no. Perhaps if we make the light darker. I really don't know what multiply helps with here. I'm going to be honest with you. But yeah, emission turns your material into a light bulb. Normal mapping, I spoke of that before. As you can see, this is a flat color. It's a good place to try a normal map. Let's see one that looks kind of good. If you search for normal, I should have something here that we can use. Yeah, the rope. Let's use this one. Would you look at that? We don't have all those polygons. Where is this curve coming from? It's not even a curve if you look at the edges. But it really sells the illusion, doesn't it? And that's what normal maps do. They simulate more detail on surfaces than they really have. And you can make it taller or deeper. Invert. You can see that there's like a little ridge here now where there wasn't any, and it kind of blends back together, and there you go, it's inverted now. It's not a ridge, it's kind of a crack. Yeah, so that's the basics of normal mapping. I'm not going into things that I really cannot explain, so maybe you would like to watch someone else explaining the whole parameter set. I'm just going to cover the most common parameters. And yeah, ambient occlusion is like if you want contact shadows with other objects, and like tiny little shadowy details where meshes are close to each other. It's not very realistic, but it helps sell the illusion of realistic lighting. Has some people have already explained it to me. I hope that's correct. If it's not, feel free to correct me. There is also some height mapping. I'm really not sure how this works. I've tried it many times. The results were not even visible. So I might be doing something wrong, and I will study that before I talk some crap. Yeah, subsurface scattering. It's like when a surface is not completely opaque and there is some light going in and bouncing out. The best example of this is your skin. If you put a flashlight under your finger or behind your ear, you will see your skin light up, basically, and some light coming out of the other side. And that's what subsurface scattering tries to simulate, not just for skin, but for other things. Rarely use this. This is more for realistic rendering of skin and some more complex surfaces that you cannot really simulate with just the most basic parameters. Yeah. Refraction is like for water materials and for glass, anything that is translucent, transparent. It basically changes the angle at which light bounces off, and how it distorts the light going out the other side. It's kind of like the looking through the bottom of a bottle or through water or gas in the air. Everything changes the light refraction. I'm not going to be scientific and start talking about the physics of it. You would be better off reading about physics, light physics, or watching some other YouTube videos on the subject. Yeah, the UV we have already covered. Right now we have no texture, but this is a good place to try a texture. So let's just quick load the checker pattern so we can see the effect of scale. Yeah, there you go. Looks like a nice 50s restaurant tile floor, I think, minus the normals, which are completely absent, so it's just a flat pattern. But this is where we can see the effect of scale better. More scale means that you are fitting the same image more times in the same area, so it looks smaller. And less scale, it's like zooming in and using less pixels to fill the same space. So in this case, triplanar won't make a difference except on scale. And yeah, it does kind of make a difference because it changes how the projection works, but in this case you can see that we don't have that blending that we had before. A good way to exemplify that is by changing the mesh. Let's try a capsule, yeah, why not? And then we go for a standard material. I'm using the override here. It's not really relevant in this context, but you can use the material in any field that allows you to. I will leave that up to you because each place has different properties as to how the material is applied and which priority it has over other materials in the same chain. So like here, this is the lowest priority, what's kind of in the mesh, and then you have the override, which is second priority, and top priority would be here in geometry, the material override, which is the global override for this object. You can also overlay another material on top of this and change the mesh transparency without changing the alpha or the albedo alpha, which is kind of nice. It doesn't always work depending on the material you have. If it's a shader material, you might have some trouble using these options, and would be probably better to change that in the shader, not in the material parameters. Yeah, okay, so we were going back to loading an albedo texture, the checkerboard. Let's use this one. This is a lot more pleasant to the eye. And this is the regular projection that the objects, the predefined objects from Godot have. It will be always correct for these objects, so they are good bases to, you know, start building other stuff. If you don't want to spend the time in your 3D program setting up the materials, you can use the simple shapes that Godot offers and model something, and then use the export options that I gave you here. You can export the complete scene, or you can export maybe the single object. After exporting the scene, I will leave that to your discretion. Yeah, we have the texture, and we wanted to see what the triplanar UV does to this. So look at this, on the curved surfaces, anything that is not facing straight forward, left, right, top or bottom or back, gets this kind of blending. It makes for some cool effects, but it's, like I said before, not always desired, and you will have to see for yourself if this is a thing that will favor you or not. Yeah. So you can also billboard this and have it always facing the camera, no matter how, from which angle. And there are other ways. This one will always stand straight up, no matter from which side you look, from which angle. It will always stay straight. Particle billboard. This is kind of interesting. We are not using particles here, and that's not something we are going to talk about soon, but it's a topic for later. I am not really the greatest authority in particles, and there's probably a lot of you out there who could teach me a thing or two or 10. So basically, before this video gets too long, these are the basics of how to apply a material to create a mesh. And if just to finish, as a bonus, if you wanted this mesh to have a collision, now that you have the tree set up, you can just select the mesh, you click on mesh, create collision shape, and then sibling works better in this case because you already have the tree set up. Try mesh will use the full polygon shape. I mean all the polygons of the shape. That's what I was trying to say. Single convex will make an approximation of that shape with one other shape. Simplified convex, it's the same as before, but a lot simpler. Multiple convex will use multiple shapes to try and describe this shape. Capsule is the most appropriate here. Let's see how it looks. We turn gizmos on here. And would you look at that, it's a perfect fit. Who would have known that a capsule would fit another capsule? But if we don't want this, select the mesh again. Let's try the single convex and see what it does. It's quite detailed actually for a single convex, and a very good approximation, I would say. But if this shape would get more complicated and would have things sticking out of the sides or holes or anything, then it would not cover that detail, just so you know. Yeah, and collision meshes don't need materials, they are always invisible. You can preview them in your test plays if you enable it here, visible collision shapes, and then you will see the collision shape of everything, which is very useful for debugging. Okay, we are just over 20 minutes with this one. This was kind of a drag. I hope not, but I will catch you in the next one.